All right, we're live. Welcome, everyone. We've got a whole panel of NX folks, the NX team here. Jason, Jack, Colum, James, and Philip. We've all got stuff we want to talk about today. So, yeah, we're excited. If you checked NPM about an hour ago, I believe we pushed out 19.6. So that is live. I believe we're going to be talking about some of the stuff from there in just a little bit here. But yeah, let's go through real quick and introduce ourselves while folks are coming in. So I'm Zach. I'm an architect here at NX and do a lot of DevRel stuff. Jason, I'll pass it off to you.
Okay, my name's Jason. I'm one of the leads on the open source NX project, and I'll pass it off to Jack.
Hey, I'm Jack, one of the other leads, one or two, and yeah, been NX for a long time. So I just passed my, what's it, 5 year, 6 year, well, 5 year, and this year will be 6 years. So yeah, long time NX contributor. I'll pass it on to Colum.
Yeah, so I'm Colum. I work on NX on the CLI team. Jack and Jason tell me what to do, and I do it essentially. So that's about it. Pass on to James.
Hey folks, I'm James. I've been working at NX for a long time as well. Wear a few different hats, working on the open source stuff as well as cloud and a few other things, collaborating with our open source partners in particular. So if you have any open source repos that you want to talk about that's related to any of the stuff we discussed, then feel free to reach out.
Hey, my name's Philip. I'm currently a member of the DevRel team, but I've also contributed to Core NX, NX Cloud. I have worked as a developer productivity engineer. There might be some of my clients in the audience today, so a lot of folks have probably talked to me before, but it's good to be on the live stream today.
Cool. We're excited to have you, Philip. Philip's going to be talking about some xCloud stuff later. I'm excited for that. But I think first up, we've got Jason showing us some cool stuff that I think this was mainly unlocked in 19.5, but it's so cool that we want to kind of come in and I think, do we have a live demo, Jason?
Yeah. If
Cool.
you want a live demo, you'll get a live demo.
I want a live demo. Should we add your screen up now?
Sure, put it up.
Let's do it.
All right. So in 19.5 of NX, we worked with the StackBlitz team and also the NapERS team to get NX working on StackBlitz. So for a long time, we couldn't run NX on StackBlitz because the native modules weren't building correctly. So now we've added a WASM binary to the mix, and that means it can run in StackBlitz or basically anywhere that node can run. So in a lot of like operating systems that we did not build for explicitly, you can now run it. So this is just a plain Vite app that you can create on StackBlitz. And what I'll do now is I'll init NX into it. Say yes, I want to install that. Okay, get some options. I'll say none of those for now. This is a Vite app, so it uses Vite. I'll skip remote caching. And I'll say I need ESLint and Vite. I'll start using NX in my package JSON scripts. And this is going to set up NX as well as plugins to integrate the tools used in this workspace. So we have Vite here, we have ESLint here. So this is setting them up. Okay, so you'll see that the NX packages have been added, and you'll see that these scripts have changed. So if I run NX preview, it'll run the NX task for preview. And when it's done, it will show up here on the right. Ta-da! And so this will work for any NX repo, and so like initializing it into a kind of empty Vite repo it's exciting, but not all too exciting. The things that I'm excited about are things like sharing your GitHub issues on StackBlitz if possible, and this will help the team debug issues. It's already been a good way for the core members to be able to share issues with each other. So I'm excited for the community to be able to just like create a StackBlitz, send it to anybody, and they can play around with it.
Yeah. One thing I'm definitely excited for is the possibility of like embedding more interesting stuff inside of the docs too. That seems in particular like it would be helpful. So, but cool.
Yeah, for sure. All right.
Does
mhm.
StackBlitz still have a thing where you can like import from GitHub? Is that a thing still?
They do. I'm not going to show it here, but you can import a Git repo. You could also like upload this as a GitHub repo. But right now this doesn't have like Git associated with it. But
Oh, I
if you go
see.
to your dashboard, you'll see I have a ton of projects. Maybe some stuff that I shouldn't be showing, but you can open like whichever repo you want. So I could open the NX repo.
Oh, that's neat.
But, but yeah,
Very cool.
again, like excited, just make NX more shareable. Now you don't have to tell someone like, hey, go to this Git repo and then clone it, install node. Like you could just go to StackBlitz and play around with NX. So it'll be great for all things sharing NX. It'll also be good for other operating systems. So we've already got some requests from some other projects which want to build or like use NX on like more mainframey kind of operating systems. And we didn't build for those explicitly because there's not too many people out there doing it. But with the WASM support, that'll be enabled as well.
That's awesome. Very cool. Well, yeah, we've got some folks in chat. Jonathan's here. Hey, Jonathan, and Ilko. Nice to see y'all. Yeah. But let's go ahead and move on with what we had planned. Jack, I think you're next. So you
Yeah, I
wanted to
believe
talk
so.
about convert to inferred. Do you want to explain what that is?
Sure. I can share my screen as well and just talk through it. I have a
Sure.
little demo. So for those who are not familiar, we have this thing called Project Crystal, which corresponded with the NX18 release, which means like you don't really need to configure your targets and your executors inside your project JSON. You could still do it that way if you want, like it's not going away, but we can actually read your configuration files. So things like if you're using Vite, we can read your vite.config.ts. If you're using Playwright, we can do the same with the Playwright config. And it has a few advantages I will talk through. One is just to reduce the amount of configuration boilerplate. So like you already have stuff configured in your Vite config with the output files and all those things. Why do you have to duplicate them again? It's also a lot of things in the past where we had, for example, requests to add options to executors because they were missing because the underlying CLI tool added it in some version. We don't have it, therefore people can't use it, and we have to like make a patch or make a new release, and it's just not the best experience. So moving forward, NX by default will be inferring all these targets, and users don't have to maintain anything in Project JSON anymore if they don't need to. I'll show like why you still might want to do stuff in there. We do have this migration guide because like with the existing workspaces, we obviously don't want to change people's workflow too drastically with the migration. So we're asking people to test this out manually and just make sure things are working because not everything is one-to-one, although we try to cover like 90% of the use cases. So follow this guide. I won't go through it. No one wants to read documentation live on the stream. So I'll just show an actual demo. So here I have a workspace and I have a couple apps. So one is a React app using Webpack. One is a Vue app using Vite. So if you look at the project JSON, this is what maybe most people are familiar with if you're a long-time NX user. So you have your targets like build target, you have your serve target, and these are using the Webpack executor. So like the dev server executor, the Webpack build executor, and then you have all these options, right? And we can take a look at maybe another project JSON. This one, we can take a look at the Vue app, which is using Playwright here for E2E. And we have like these outputs configured. And these again, like are already configured in your Playwright, or should be configured in your Playwright config, right? So if you have any outputs like screenshots, whatever, you're captured here. But we have to duplicate them. And if you have options in here as well, like I forget, maybe watch, for example. Those options aren't really NX specific. They're specific to the underlying tool. You're just forced to kind of repeat it by using the project JSON and executor. So how does it look like if I want to convert, for example, the React Webpack app to not use any of these things anymore, but just like infer things from the Webpack config file? So I can run, okay. I think that's safe. Okay, cool. So I can run the convert to inferred. And there's a bunch of things that you'll see listed because pretty much every official plugin that we maintain will have this convert generator. There are some that, for example, Angular doesn't have it because we don't have a Crystal story for it yet. But I'll pick Webpack here because that's what the React app is using. And you'll see, like usually when you run these migrators, you can we'll log out some information when things may not work the way you expected. In this case, I'm actually forced to, well, not forced, but like the migration doesn't work because what's happening is that if we look at the Webpack config, this is not a standard Webpack config. So this is how we've done it for years. And it's a very NX specific thing where the executor will read in this thing, and this will return a function that basically takes the config and returns the config. And the Webpack, like the standard Webpack config doesn't support this function. It does have another function format, but it's more like environment to void or something. Or I can't remember exactly what the signature is, but it's completely different. So we can't infer any targets from this config just because Webpack cannot read it. So we can't even use it with the Webpack CLI. So, oh, I don't want those changes. So let me run the generator is asking me to run first. And then this will convert it. So now you'll see this file looks like a standard Webpack config. It's usually async just because there are some things that might be async from the previous config. And this is supported by Webpack, so it's no problem. And then instead of using our compose plugins and all those like WebNX, these are the equivalent. And these are just standard Webpack plugins, so we can use them like this. And then the old config is migrated to here. And this is left intact. We just renamed it. And it's wrapped around with this use legacy NX plugin function. And this will just make sure we adapt the old configuration into the new format. I won't go into it too much more, but you should read in like the different comments that we sprinkle into the new config file just to make sure you understand what's going on. There might be follow-up actions to, like, for example, eventually I think you want to remove this file and just start porting things into the more standard config. But now that it's converted, let's take a look at what it looks like. Oh, I didn't convert it. Sorry, I need to run it again. Webpack. So now that the config is standard, you can see the build is just calling Webpack CLI, right? So there's no executors involved. And the arcs you can pass like this. And serve, everything is still using Webpack CLI, no longer the executor. And I can show that it does work. So let me serve it. So there's no NX involved to serve this except just to run the command. So NX is only doing the task orchestration and running. There's no longer any executor involved here, right? So that's Webpack. This one's probably the more complicated case. It's because we had a config file that wasn't standard. For all the other tooling we have, we don't have that step because Veed, Playwright, everything, they were already standard config. So I'm just showing Webpack as it's a little bit more involved. Oops, I don't know why. Let me cancel that. I'll show another thing. So let's take a look at the config here. So the project JSON. So you notice like it got drastically reduced. Like all the executor, all the options are gone. You can technically remove these, I think, if you don't need them. The only thing is if you used to run like prod, for example, without these flags or without these configurations, the flag won't work. So we kept them in there, just we don't want to break people's workspaces. But if you notice you don't need them, you can delete them. Serve, for example, if I don't need the configuration, I can just delete the whole thing. Right? And in this case, I don't even need the serve target. I can just delete it. And because everything's inferred, I can still see the serve targets here, even though it's not in the project JSON. So that's pretty good, I think, reducing configuration files. The other cool thing is if I look at one of the E2E projects. So, for example, let's see, let's do the view one. This one's using Playwright. You see it's using the Playwright executor. Now, if you don't know what atomizer is, it's pretty cool. It actually can split the E2E task into multiple tasks per file. So if you have like 10 different files for this project, all those spec files will create different projects, different targets for that project. And it's not possible to do it without the inferred targets. It's because it takes a lot of manual configuration inside project JSON to split them, right? So if I convert it, oops, not ng, convert into Playwright. Now if I inspect the same project again, you'll see this E2E CI, and these are split. And there's a little blurb about like what this means. You can read the docs about it. Now the atomizer can't be used in this repo because I haven't run NX Connect yet, so I should probably do that. I won't do that right now. But what this will do is on CI, these will be sent to different agents so they can all be distributed. So instead of running one huge like slow task in one agent, we can distribute them amongst different agents in NX Cloud. So that's the other reason you want to use the inferred migration.
Jack, could I ask you to maybe make a new spec file for Playwright so we can see? Like, I think that would make a new task show up in the show projects, right?
Yeah. Why not? Yeah, let me just copy this one, I guess. Oh, that's not the right one. I need this one. Oops. Okay, let me just example 2 maybe.
Zach really just wanted to see some more Lunar Vim action, which wasn't enough.
It's mesmerizing, Jack.
It's okay.
I haven't seen you touch a mouse this entire time.
Oh, I can't touch it. Actually, I don't have a mouse. I have a trackball.
Oh, fancy.
Yeah, so here we have 2 files, right? You can imagine if each one of these take, for example, 4 minutes, right? And you have 10 of them, that's 40 minutes if you're running not in parallel on the one machine. If you have like 10 agents, you can distribute them to the 10 agents, and then the whole thing will take like, roughly 4 minutes for the total run, plus and minus like some fixed costs and stuff. But it's just a lot nicer because you don't have to configure your project JSON to do the same thing. We just do it automatically for you. So this, I think, is probably the biggest reason I would convert your project. So the other thing is like you can just convert one project at a time if you're not willing to buy in to the whole thing. So if you run the convert to inferred, you can pass in a project like this. So you can do it one at a time, test out the targets, test everything again, make sure things are working, and then that should be it. So
Yeah,
that's all I have. Again,
anybody that wants to try out Atomizer, hopefully you're aware that we changed our approach to pricing for NX Cloud, so you can try out all of the features of NX Cloud for free. So you can spawn multiple agents and go from having some huge, bulky end-to-end project which takes 40 minutes to run to distributing those and scaling horizontally with adding more and more agents, running that and seeing the benefits that you'll get by having one file turn into one task instead of one giant block that you can't split up.
Yeah, very good point. So it's all free, so there's no excuse. You should just connect to cloud and then try it.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. That's all I have.
Cool. Thanks, Jack. Let me hide your screen again. But yeah, we've got Mike here in chat. Hi, Mike. Mike just joined us here at NX recently, so that's really cool. We do have some questions here, and I think we're doing okay on time. Do y'all want to tackle some of these real quick? We've got one from Milan regarding improving ESM support. Anyone want to take that?
Yeah, I mean, yes, always. Like, we've already addressed many issues in the past. I think if there are specific issues that are still coming up, we'll take a look.
Cool. Sounds good. I think this is a facetious question, but I don't think we have any plans to become a package manager in the future. But more serious question from Brendan. For those that don't want to use NX Cloud, how can you make use of these advancements? So I think actually Atomizer has like it probably makes the most sense to use this with NX Cloud. Like James mentioned, like you could totally slash your wall time or your clock time for your CI using the Atomizer. I think there may be some benefits to using like split tasks without that too. Potentially, like depending on how your dependency graph works and various things like that. I believe by atomizing things out, you can still kind of take advantage of like caching the results of individual tasks that way and splitting things out. So I believe there
kind
may
of
be
true,
some
but I think without NX Cloud, you're not going to see the full benefit because there's also things like flaky like rerun. Like if you have a whole CI suite or like a E2E task, and you split it to like 10 different tasks. If one spec file fails, it reruns that one spec file rather than like try to rerun the whole thing. So I would almost just say without Cloud, the Atomizer is not worth it. Now you still benefit from other things like the project configuration, staying in sync with your config files. You know, you don't have so much boilerplate to configure your project, so those still benefit from like a DX point of view.
Yeah. I think Atomizer is built for cloud, like definitively. There's a lot of issues with end-to-end tests where they can't run in parallel. They'll like try to use the same port. So like definitively on one machine, you can only run like one end-to-end task. Like you can try to like make all the ports, like, you know, find an open port. But really like they should be distributed to different machines. So if you try to run all of these tasks on the same machine, even if you could, it would end up slower than just running the end-to-end task as a whole. Like that one would spawn one server and then run all the tasks on one machine. And like if you don't have the ability to use NX Cloud and to have distributed agents, like that is actually the best way to go. But if you do have NX Cloud and you do have the distributed agents, then distributing them can save you a lot of time. So highly recommended.
And Brendan, on your point around not being allowed to use external services, we are now listed on the Amazon and Google cloud marketplaces. So it's easier than ever to do a self-hosted version of NX Cloud. Previously, you had to run a particular setup with Kubernetes, but now we are integrated into those marketplaces. So you can, in a few clicks, have a private self-hosted NX Cloud instance. And obviously, that's something, if you want more information, you can reach out to the support email as well.
Yeah, I'll say that through our enterprise license, we have a lot of options for on-prem instances and addressing some of these concerns about external services. Honestly, like we're running NX Cloud in some of the most stringent environments that you can imagine. Things like banks, international trading, things like that. So if you're getting a no internally, go ahead and reach out to us because we are like really experienced with addressing those concerns and helping you as an engineer to make that argument to your managers and VPs to make sure that we can get NX Cloud in the door. So that's definitely not a hard stop from us. Always reach out and talk to us about the enterprise license.
Awesome. Thanks, Phil. All right, let's keep it moving. I think next up on our little internal schedule column, we have you talking about module federation.
Yes. So I am sharing my screen, I think. And essentially, our module federation updates in the past from 19.5 have been mostly silent, and that the user shouldn't notice too much about them. But they add a lot of new features and better developer experience and better performance. So Module Federation 2.0 was announced. The problem is that Module Federation 2.0 is a separate package and isn't part of the Webpack native Module Federation plugin.
Column, are you intending to share something right now? I think maybe we're getting the wrong screen.
Oh, that's annoying. I was trying to share my entire screen. Okay, I can just talk through it. So the Module Federation 2.0 is not native to Webpack. It's a separate package. So we've switched to use that package now. It's the Module Federation Enhanced package. And that is a silent update because our with Module Federation util will just use it under the hood. So there should be no change to the user. But what it does is it allows you access to all the new features that come along with Module Federation. And yeah, the Module Federation 2.0 is being built by the creator of Module Federation, Zach Jackson, and the ByteDance team. So they're constantly bug fixing and improving the quality of that package. And you just get it all for free now, and just by migrating to the latest of NX. The other change that we made was related to how we serve our host applications. So beforehand, we would serve a single file server with all the remote applications hosted there, and then we would do some internal mapping to point any remote applications location, like web address, to point to the single file server. But now we are running proxy servers, so that everything stays on the port that the host is expecting the remote to be on. There's no internal mapping, and that allows dynamic federation to perform as expected. And you keep the development experience, the same local development experience, while keeping performance costs down.
Cool.
I think the other thing that we changed recently, like a small change, is the dev server when it spins up. Like some of the shared libraries previously were being served by the static server, and so users were like, "Yeah, I'm updating this component. How come it's not updating?" To kill everything, restart the whole process, which is annoying, right? So, do you want to talk about?
Yeah. So that problem was essentially that when you have workspace libraries and there's your Module Federation setup is set to share your workspace libraries, at runtime, Module Federation will find that package or that library from a remote within the architecture, but it is not necessarily a remote that's got the HMR or live reloading set up on it. So it could come from a static remote, so any changes you make locally are not being reflected on your live development environment. So by switching to Module Federation Enhanced package, it allowed us to take advantage of the new runtime plugins feature that is part of Module Federation 2. So we built a runtime plugin that will actively search for a remote application that has HMR set up on it or live reloading, and we will force those workspace libraries to be shared from that remote, so that any changes you make are reflected in the live environment.
Sweet. Well, cool. Anything else we want to add there on Module Federation?
I think that covers all of it that we've done. We've also made the SSR approach aligned with the client-side approach, so everything is the same now. It's all consistent across whether you're using SSR or SPA for your Module Federation.
Very cool. Yeah, it seems like module federation works really well with the idea or the concept of monorepos. So it's really cool that we have that support now. Like you said, it's kind of like you kind of get it for free out of the box using our generators now. So
yeah,
it's pretty cool. All right, well let's move right along. Next up on our schedule, we wanted to talk about file-based versioning. So this is something new for NX release. James, you want to take it away?
Yes, sir. I'll share a super quick little project here. So this is a very simple workspace, just a package-based repo. I've got a single package in here called mylib, super simple. It's currently a version 0.0.1. And yeah, there's no kind of advanced configuration here. I wired up the ESLint plugin. So I'm getting the inferred targets that Jack mentioned. So there's nothing specific wiring up a lint executor in here. But I do have the lint target available to me for mylib. So that's cool. And NX release, in case you're not familiar with it, it's our native versioning and publishing tool. So it allows me to support versioning packages, generating change logs, and publishing to a registry. NX release is agnostic to technologies, just like NX Core is itself. So a lot of you may well have only used NX with JavaScript or TypeScript-based projects, but people out there are doing polyglot repos with .NET, Java, Rust, Go, all kinds of other native languages that are not JavaScript specific. So NX release does support all of those as well because we have extensibility points. So NX release doesn't technically understand JavaScript or Go or Rust or anything like that, and it gets informed about it via plugins. So the only difference is we know that an awful lot of people want to publish JavaScript packages that use NX. So we made it so that you don't have to manually wire up the understanding for JavaScript. If you do nothing, if you don't configure anything with NX release, NX is already going to work and understand your workspace. So it's already going to understand that I have a package JSON here, and this would be a JavaScript package that I might want to version and publish. So I could run NX release, a top level command, and run it in dry run mode. So I can say --dry run, or I can say -d for short. And because I've not set up any kind of config here, I've not set up any kind of strategy that I want to base my versioning and publish on, it's going to assume you want to do some kind of imperative versioning that's driven via a CLI prompt. So I can tell NX release, hey, I know I want to do a minor bump because I built a feature that I want to release to everybody. So when I didn't provide a specifier on the CLI via an argument, I'll be asked, hey, what specifier should we use for the project that exists? So I can say minor, for example. It's going to run through. It's going to tell me that I've never done a release of this package before, so it can't find things like an existing tag to base things on. But I can pass --first release to remove that issue down there. But yeah, it's going to tell me that it's resolved the current version from my package JSON file on disk, and it's written the new version because I told it I want to do a minor bump. So it's going to patch my package JSON. We're in dry run mode right now, so it hasn't touched disk, but it's going to patch my package JSON, go from this version to this version. It would update a log file and stage the changes. So if I just get rid of that noise and add first release so that it can continue on, do the same. I'll do a patch this time. So you can see this time I've done a patch instead of a minor. It's gone on and it's generated a change log for me this time because it didn't hit that first release error. But I didn't make any changes, so there's nothing to put in the change log. There's nothing in my commit history that would be relevant to print here. And then it will stage changes and it would move on to publishing if I wasn't in dry run mode. So that's really cool. And that's one way. There's nothing wrong with this approach. This is one approach to versioning. NX release for a long time now has supported another way to version, which is to get the source of truth from your Git commit data itself. So many of you might well use conventional commit standards. So this involves committing messages based on saying like, I developed a feature, therefore I'm going to say feat : and give a description. I might say an optional scope. So here I might say feat mylib, awesome feature was built kind of thing. So that would give NX release a conventional commit standard message to interpret. And we could say, oh, okay, so you've created a feature. That means we know you want to do a minor bump. If you said fix, we know you want to do a patch release. And if you had a bang here, if you had an exclamation mark, that would be a breaking change. Or you can also apply the words breaking change in capitals in the body of your commit message as well. That would also be interpreted as a major change. So you would go from 0.1 to 1.0, for example. So those two different ways, the specifier-based approach where you're telling us either an exact version or a semver bump, or you're letting us derive it from your commit messages where you've said feat or fix, and we can derive that you want a minor or a major, a minor or a patch, and we can derive a breaking change. Now NX release supports a third way, which is rather than using imperative or rather than using git commits as your source of truth for what your bump should be, you can store that information in a file on disk alongside your changes. And tools like change sets and Beach Ball from Microsoft have popularized this approach, and it's kind of proven out in the industry. And so I'm really proud that NX release is able to support this in addition to all of those other versioning strategies, whereas those tools have chosen that as their only approach. With NX release, you can use that approach alongside using conventional commits or imperative versioning for different projects in your workspace if you want to. So for right now, I just have this one project. So let's switch it to using version plans. So because out of the box, NX release does the kind of imperative approach, we're going to have to give it a little bit of config here. So we're just going to say version plans. This is a new option as of NX 19.6. Now we're going to say version plans true. And we have a new command available to us on the NX release CLI, a new subcommand called NX release plan. And this is going to help us with generating a plan file, which again will live on disk. So if I say NX release plan, again, I'm going to get a prompt telling me, asking me what kind of bump do I want to do. But this time, rather than this being me creating a new version, I'm creating a plan to version later. I'm going to be storing this file on disk to then be ingested by NX release at a later time. So you can imagine that I'm on a branch and I'm making changes for a PR. Alongside my changes, I, as the author of the changes, know best as to what the bump should be when the version is actually generated later. Maybe it's generated by one of my colleagues, or maybe it's generated by a CI process, but I'm the author of the change, so I know best. So I can create a file alongside my changes. For example, let's do the minor bump now. It's going to ask me, again, as the author who knows the change, to write about this change. This is the time when I will give the changelog message that I care about. So I can give it directly in line here. I can say an awesome feature, and this will generate a plan file for me. So you can see I've got a uniquely named plan markdown file, and this is using front matter YAML flavored markdown. As you can see here, it's generated this in a new directory here called version plans inside of .nx. So we can have a look at that, but obviously it matches our little diff output here. So I've got markdown linting on, so that's why it's got a yellow squiggly underneath. I've got an awesome feature, which is my message that came through. And then in this top section, the 3 dashes denotes the YAML inside of front matter. This is a kind of thing used by Jekyll, and change sets uses the same structure. It's just a way of encoding some more metadata inside. So by default, NX release is creating a default release group for you behind the scenes, which is called this __default__. I could also reference the project by name directly if I wanted to. So that's called mylib. And the cool thing is here, I can reference multiple projects or multiple release groups and have different types of bumps for those different projects in a single version plan. It's entirely up to you. If you have a mixture of changes, you could either create multiple version plan files, or you could create one version plan file that affects multiple independently released projects and then gives them one overall piece of documentation for the changelog. And the cool thing is here, unlike a commit message where it's kind of difficult to compose like a long piece of documentation or like information about breaking changes, I can have as many paragraphs or areas of text or whatever in this markdown, and it will all appear in the changelog at the end. And an existing feature we have in NX release is that you can also provide a custom changelog renderer if you want. So if you don't like our default renderer for changelogs out of the box, you can ingest the changes and produce your own content as well at the end. But for now, let's just work with this generated version plan that we have on disk. So again, this would be something I would commit. This is on disk. It's being tracked by Git. We're not ignoring the whole of the .nx directory. We're only ignoring workspace data and cache if that was there. I haven't run any tasks, so there's no cache directory, but we're ignoring only a subset of .nx. We want to track version plans. So I would make this change alongside my real feature development, and that would be tracked in my repo. Then later, the same command we ran before, where we'll say NX release, first release, and we'll run dry run mode again. Now, when we do things, we're going to resolve the current version from package.json just as we did before, but now we're versioning the specifier as minor from our version plan. I actually forgot to revert this to __ default, but as you can see, it works just fine with the name of the project directly as well. It's up to you if you want to use release group names or project names. So we've resolved the specifier as minor. Therefore, we know we need to go from 0.0.1 to 0.1.0. So this has worked in exactly the same way as when I gave this via the CLI. And this time, when I generate my changelog, it knows minor bump is a feature. Our default changelog renderer will turn a minor into a feature section. And as you can see, an awesome feature has automatically been added for my lib. And this was the information I put in the changelog. It's been added in my changelog generation. If you leverage our built-in capability to create a GitHub release in exactly the same way, this would be the content of your GitHub release as well. So again, this is brand new in 19.6. The documentation should be live any minute now. I think we've already merged the docs, but you can go and look that up. And yeah, I'm excited that this is available for everybody. I know a few open source repos have been very excited to use this. And again, you can combine this with other approaches within the same monorepo. Let's say you want your JavaScript packages to use conventional commits, but you want your Go packages to use version plans. That's all possible. You can split things up by release group and stuff like that. So yeah, I hope everyone enjoys using version plans.
That's awesome. Thanks, James. We've got in chat Nicholas. 19.6 is packed with a bunch of great features. Thanks a lot for the work. Thanks, Nicholas. And we've also got Nicholas here from the NX team. So 2 Nicholases. That's awesome. We do have a question here. Future JSON 5 could be used instead of JSON for configurations due to common support and other improvements. I'm not sure about this. Has this been on your radar at all, Jason?
We have looked at JSON 5, and we currently use, I think, a JSON C parser. So, like, comments are there. The difficulty is when we do code generation to update those files, it gets harder to kind of just read a JSON, amend it like in JS, and then like write it back to disk. Rather than that, like we'd have to go the routes of like parsing out the JSON AST and then like inserting some string in there. So it makes the developer experience of NX plugins much more complicated. And that's what we would need to kind of persist those comments. Otherwise, right now we read the JSON, like we can discard the comments and get the value of the JSON. But when we go to write it back to disk, we lose those comments. So that's really where the supporting JSON 5 gets more complicated. And that would affect all of our plugin maintainers and everything. So that's the difficulty there. But there is a chance in the future. We've thought about it. But yeah, that's where we're at with it right now. I can't say when or if it will come.
Cool. Thanks, Jason. Well, yeah, let's move right along because we're starting to run short on time. Jason, you want to talk about NX import?
Yes. Okay. I've shared my screen, but don't show everyone yet. Okay. Now you can show everyone.
We're good. All right. There we go.
So, NX import. We receive a ton, or even like with our clients in the past, we generally get the call and they're like, hey, we have 15 different repos and we want to merge it all into one monorepo. And it's been a very laborious process with each of those requests. But in the future, no more. So a lot of people they don't start with a monorepo in their company. They have other repositories out there and they have tons of Git history and they want to merge it into their monorepo once they start seeing like how great monorepos are for their workflow, right? So I have an empty monorepo here. I have my PNPM or NPM workspaces set up. And then what I have elsewhere is a different app, right? So I have an empty Vite app here. And let's say that contains my actual application, or it could contain like some design system. like something else that I originally thought I wanted to kind of maintain in a separate repo, but after using NX, like I don't want to anymore. So if
Does that
only,
application have its own Git history, Jason, too?
yes, it does.
Cool.
So I can go in there, I guess, created Vite app. So this has its own Git history. I can show like this has an initial commit. I'm pretty lazy with my commits, but if I go back in here, this also has its own Git history, and it has a capital initial commit. I felt kind of more inclined to use casing that day. But
Feels
what you
more
can do,
formal with the capitalization, I feel like. So
yeah. So if I want to take that entire repo with the Git history and the files and merge it into this monorepo, I can do nx import, and it will guide me through it. So it'll list out the steps that we're going to go through in this process. And I'll also go through it in here. So if I point to it, it can be a local Git repository. So I was saying it is in created Vite app. You can choose which branch to import. So I'll say the Vite branch. And then which directory from the other repository that I want to import. So you don't have to import like an entire repository. You can import just one project in that repository. So that one's a pretty simple repository, as like a lot of repositories out there are. So I'll say I want to import the entire thing. And I'll say I want it to go into packages Vite app. And now it's going to go through the process of merging the changes. So it's actually already done that. I can see the files and Git history here. One last thing is because this workspace originally did not have any plugins, it noticed that the project that I wanted to import uses ESLint and it uses Vite. So it's telling me I might want to add more Annex plugins to integrate the tools used in the imported code into this workspace as well. So I'll go ahead and do that. And I'll answer yes to that as well. Okay, so this repo that did not use NX before, I just kind of was a simple Vite app, but now I determined I want that in my NX repo. So this is going ahead and initializing all the plugins. And now I have my new project. So if I do NX show projects, we'll see the created Vite app has been imported. If I do NX show project created Vite app, oh, that opened up over here, but we'll get that on the screen. So this imported the Vite app, and you can see that all the npm scripts have been imported. Also, all of the targets that we're able to infer with the plugins that we mentioned for Project Crystal were imported. And now I can go ahead and copy the command or the command for serve. I'll go back in here and I'll run serve. And now this is running the Vite app that I just imported as part of my NX workspace. If I go ahead and do the build, this will do the build, and caching will be set up out of the box with very minimal work. So yeah, this is kind of what NX or Project Crystal has been building up into. So this is the beginning of being able to import your projects, like other repositories, into your monorepo and kind of to grow NX inside your organization. So the last thing I'll show is that the Git log is there. So there's a few commits. That's a lot of information. So I'll do one line there. Focus it down. So I have this initial commit. We saw that this is from this repo because it has a capital I. This is from the imported repo. And it did a few commits on its own. So we'll have like moving everything from the other repo into where it's going to end up in here. And then finally, it has a merge commit into this repo. So all of your Git history, say you've been developing an app for 2 years now, and it's like, I don't know, it's ready to see the light of day, but before that, we want to put it in the monorepo. This will be like it'll import all of the Git history from that. So this is currently experimental. We can say that it's coming later, but you can try it today if you like basically have watched this video or live stream and you want to try it. You can do other things with it as well. Nope, we already did that. So many I commands. You can do a remote repository as well. So if you don't have it locally, you can say like, I want to, I don't know, import the NX repo into my repo. Probably don't do that. You can import like other open source projects and stuff like that. But yeah, like mostly you'd want to try it out. If anything goes wrong, you get reset and you kind of see what went wrong, and you can kind of update the repo beforehand and choose a different branch before you import it. And so yeah, that is NX import. And
That's
we're
awesome.
we're still working on it. It's brand new. Try it out and let us know what you think.
Cool. We got some positive feedback here in the chat. We also have a question here. I was intrigued by this question too. So the question is, so say we only import one directory, is the imported Git history filtered to just change the scope to that directory?
Yes, it is. So if you
Nice.
have like just one component in a repo of like multiple components, you want to do them one at a time, then it'll have the Git history for each of those files.
Very cool. Awesome. Thanks, Jason. Let's see. I think that's most of the stuff we had for NX proper. But Philip, we want to hear about new NX Cloud updates. So, yeah.
And I'm so excited to talk about them. So the first thing that I want to bring up, James actually mentioned this, that we have a new hobby plan that replaces our previous free plan. And the big changes to it are going to be that it enables a lot more features of NX Cloud. So, if you haven't tried NX Cloud before, or you haven't tried NX Cloud in a long time, this is a great jumping on point to join as part of the hobby plan, because specifically the hobby plan is including access to NX agents now. So if you've been curious about agents and what that workflow looks like, how the performance is, but you just couldn't get up to the pro plan for whatever reason, the hobby plan is there now for agents. If you have like a small weekend project, if you have an open source project, something like that, this is a really great option for trying out agents and getting on board with NX Cloud. Speaking of getting on board with NX Cloud, it's never been easier to get a repo onto NX Cloud and using NX Replay and using the CIPE logging support. So what I have here on GitHub is an unconnected workspace. This is just a standard NX workspace that has not been connected to NX Cloud before. As I'm in NX Cloud, I've created my account, and what you can now do during sign up is go ahead and attach your GitHub account to NX Cloud so that we can integrate with it more easily. So that now when I click on this connect a workspace, rather than have to go through the previous workflow of having to actually go to the terminal, run the connect command, get access tokens and things like that, we can actually read right out of your GitHub account what repositories might be eligible for NX Cloud. And so very specifically down here, I've already got this unconnected workspace repo that I was showing you before. If I just select that, give this an organization name to create it under, and now this is going to create a PR with everything that I need to be able to connect to NX Cloud. So I haven't had to go to the terminal. I haven't had to do anything else. I just have this PR now, which is going to have all the information that this needs. As soon as I merge this, I'm connected to NX Cloud. All of my CI processes are running through NX Cloud. I'm getting caching. I'm eligible for agents and adopting that into my workflow. So again, if you haven't tried Cloud in a while, you couldn't get it set up, anything like that, now's the time. Go retry it and try these new ways of getting on board with a repo. We talked about the task atomizer earlier. And so what I wanted to also show is some of the improvements that we've made in the output for logs and errors and things like that as you're going through CI. So I have intentionally raised a PR here, which has an end-to-end error. Some people unintentionally introduce EDE errors. I'm next level. I intentionally introduce EDE errors. And so what I have now on my PR is this. We always have the NX Cloud report, which is going to give you these failed commands and be able to link to them. But if we actually look into the logs for this particular thing, we will see the new sort of task summary table that we have here, which rather than previously when you were running a ton of tasks through CI and looking at these logs either in GitHub Actions or Circle CI, we were printing out all of the terminal output. And that became just really, really unwieldy. If you were hunting for a problem, then you were having to scroll through all of this. This is going to give you a much quicker access to anything that you might need that's provided by NX Cloud. So we can see that we've got this error here on the spec file where I introduced that. I can just click right here and it's going to take me directly to the logs for that so that I can see where the error is occurring. And once we're here, we have a great new feature called Explain with AI. So now that I have this problem, I can click on this Explain with AI, and this is going to provide both the text of the error, a terminal output, as well as a lot of context from NX itself to be able to give you a starting point for how to begin to solve this problem. So in this case, the error that I introduced was changing the text that I was expecting. So understandably, it's telling me to check that HTML content. Did I expect to change that? Maybe I should update that. Some things on debugging. This should really be a great tool in your tool belt for, I don't exactly know why this error was introduced. Here are some of the debugging steps that I can step through to be able to handle that. When we talk about the NX context that it's providing here, it knows that we're in Playwright. It knows that we're running end-to-end tests. This is also going to work across the ecosystem. So if you're in TypeScript, if you're in Go, if you're in Rust, it's going to tune the results based on that context. This is in beta right now. It is opt-in. Your organization will have to enable it as part of their organization settings to be able to support AI. And so especially if your organization has strict requirements around AI and how it can be used within your organization, we allow you to only opt in to that. With that, I will say, get in touch with us. We've already talked about like the enterprise license and how we can help you there. If you need to talk to sales, you're ready to get on NX Cloud, but you can't go through our pro plan. You're a little bit bigger than that. Please reach out to our sales team so that we can talk about terms and options for you. And if you're an engineer and you're hearing like that pushback from management, from VPs, anything like that, reach out to our engineers. We are happy to talk to you and we can get you over some of those blockers. We have a lot of options beyond just the managed US instance for NX Cloud, and we'd love to talk to you about what your situation is, what requirements you might have, and we can definitely work through those with you. Like I said earlier, we are in really, really stringent environments. We know how to get past some of those blockers. Reach out. Let's build a partnership and help you get NX Cloud onboarded at your organization.
Sweet. Thanks, Philip. Well, I think we're at time. Yeah, this was a lot.
This was a lot. And I also said that like this is only some of the things that we've worked on in the last few weeks and months. So read the blog post if you haven't to find out even more. And I'm sure it will be there's just a ton of stuff that we couldn't cover today. So
yeah. Well, 19.6 is out now. Go check it out. Run your NX migrates, and yeah, we'll probably be putting out some more content here on what else was here on 19.6. But yeah, so stay tuned, and yeah, thanks for joining. See y'all.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.